Stage 7, the penultimate day of the Amgen Tour of California, taking the rise from Livermore to nearby Mount Diablo, the high spot of the race, a mountain top finish for the first time in this race.
Well, two climbs on the way, Morgan Territory followed by Patterson's Pass, but really it was the final climb of the day that gave the sting in the tail to this year's Amgen Tour of California, because down towards the end, climbing 1,100 meters or almost 4,000 feet, Mount Diablo at 17 kilometers in length.
This was the sign-in, and in yellow again with TJ Van Garderen after his great time trial yesterday. He's increased his overall lead over Michael Rogers, and Cameron Meyer climbing up into third place as they headed out onto the open road. After a big circuit of some 100 kilometres, they came back into the start town of Livermore, and there was a breakaway going on, and in that breakaway was Carter Jones. He'd done enough by winning the first two climbs to win at the Nissan King of the Mountains competition before they arrived at Mount Diablo.
Looming on the horizon outside of the town of Livermore was Mount Diablo, but first of all what they had to do was pull back that 10-man leading group that at one stage had built up an advantage of almost 4 minutes. But a great job of work was done by Team James, who were the team of the Colombian climber, and that of course Hanier Acevedo. Looked as if Andy Schleck was going to try and do a special ride here this afternoon, but the main field for a lot of the climb were under the control of Team BMC Racing. But in the leading group, all of a sudden, the Dutchman, Louis Vestre, felt he had climbing legs.
It was always going to be about this last climb up to the summit of Mount Diablo. Everybody was racing for seconds for the final shuffle of the overall classification. Meanwhile, it was the job of the boys in red and black of Team BMC to keep the pace high. It even cost Timmy Duggan here, the champion of the USA, a place in the finishing peloton. He was left as well.
As they got further up the slopes, the gap started to tumble, and riders were getting tailed off the back of the group, including Carter Jones. But he wasn't too concerned about that, because as far as he'd done the job to win himself the King of the Mountains competition this year.
With a couple of riders up front by 1 minute, and that was David de la Cruz and Louis Vestre. The rest were all falling back. Andy Schleck, on number 7 there, was now back in the bunch. And then, coming up with the last 6 kilometres to go, can you believe it, 41-year-old Jens Voigt tried to slip away from the field.
Trying to create a little bit more damage and maybe set something up for his own teammate, Matthew Boucher, who started the day in 6th place in the overall standings. But these accelerations then started to eat into the advantage of the two leaders. It was down from 1 minute and 15 seconds advantage to 45 with 5 kilometres to go.
But there's no respite on the climb of Mount Diablo. It's some 17 kilometres long, and Mancebo attacked from the group. He quickly picked up Jens Voigt and left him behind as he was off now in pursuit of the two leaders.
And very quickly he got across the gap, but the main field were also starting to accelerate under the control of the Red Guard, the riders from BMC Racing. The man on the front there, Marco Pinotti, former Italian time trial champion, doing a good job setting the pacemaking for TJ Van Garderen, hoping that they could stay off the attacks from the climbers.
Mancebo had contacted the front group, and in the chase 2 upcoming was Leopold Koenig. So there was some new names, and all the way up the climb we were expecting Hanier Acevedo to attack and aim for a 3rd place finish tomorrow. He left it till 3 kilometres to go, but he made his move so swiftly few could stay with him. Leopold Koenig, though, he also went after him.
When you look back at the times from the previous time trial stage, the climb to the summit, first was the fastest time was Hanier Acevedo. The next man, who was just 1 second slower than the Colombian, was Leopold Koenig in the blue and white jersey there of Team NetApp, and he slowly but surely rode across the gap to join the Colombian leader.
25-year-old from the Czech Republic was quickly up alongside and didn't even give him a chance to recover, because he hit him straight away with an attack as the finish line was approaching. Acevedo, though, needed just 34 seconds to move up to 3rd place overall in this race, and it was looking good as the finish approached.
Well, TJ Van Garderen down to just 2 solid teammates there, Amel Moinard and of course his own teammate Matthias Frank, who was in 4th place in the overall standings. But probably the big casualty was Cameron Meyer, who started the day in 3rd place overall, but tailing him by that 34 seconds was the man who was now leading the race, the Colombian Acevedo.
Acevedo on the front. Cameron Meyer, the man he was shooting at in that 3rd place overall, was off the back, and now every second really was counting for the Colombian. And a very, very elitist group chasing up the mountain as well, and TJ Van Garderen was still in this group. And so too Lawson Craddock. He'd slipped to 10th after the time trial yesterday. He was now about to move up to 8th as the best young rider.
Inside of the final 300 kilometres to go, this man, Leopold Koenig, showed us why he's going to become one of the next big climbers on the international circuit, because he still had the power up the steeper grade into the end to get himself a great victory.
His first victory, and only the 5th in his career, his first victory since September last year. Acevedo, the clock started now for him as he came over in 2nd place, Van Garderen 3rd place, Michael Rogers right behind him in 4th. And after 34 seconds had passed by, Acevedo would have promoted himself onto a podium finish tomorrow in Santa Rosa. So let's have a look how those standings stand overall tonight going into the last stage. No change in the top 2. 2-second gain for Van Garderen over Rogers. Acevedo up into 3rd. Frank holds 4th. Meyer drops from 3rd down into 5th place. Lawson Craddock moves up into 8th. Last stage tomorrow as the riders go from San Francisco to Santa Rosa. There are no mountains, just the celebrations. Goodbye.